Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Stacy. It's episode 367. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Stacy. That is at StacyPan89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing on this Monday afternoon?
I think it was the first time it was on a Victory Monday for one of us, at least in a while, right? So, my condolences. I was rooting for the Bills.
Yeah, it certainly was not. Certainly is not a Victory Monday, which sucks. But yes, I think it was the first one that we haven't had in a while. So I guess now we're all just Knicks fans now, so that's great. I don't think anybody listening to this pod is like a fucking Ravens fan, a Chiefs fan. If you're a Chiefs fan, go fuck yourself. I don't think anybody is a.
Shwin, you spent 4 years near Detroit. You can have a little hope.
Yeah, I mean, I like the Lions, but I'm not a Lions fan. It's not like if they lose, I'm going to be like, oh my god, this is awful. I would just
Jared Goff.
Yeah, hopefully the Niners and neither the Niners or the Chiefs win. That would be my ideal scenario. Anyways, before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strickland on Instagram. Posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you maybe watch this podcast. If you are even not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. Leave us a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. Strickland also has merchandise, which is available on our website. You can find all kinds of cool stuff on there. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. You can find that again on our website, which is at www.thestrick.land, and there will be a link that will take you to the merchandise store. And the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, the podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Abby's Bozos, our newest podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you also get access to the Strickland Discord where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Murray, one of the best in the business. And now you also get access to Strictly NFL, our weekly NFL podcast that is hosted by Constantine Metricos and Jeffrey Rasmussen. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and a $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening to pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without BetOnline. With the NFL playoffs right around the corner and the NBA season in full swing, BetOnline has you covered with all the up-to-the-second odds, news, and scores with additional odds, lines, trends, and info on both desktop and mobile. You can access the world's best wagering information anytime. Head there today to get into the action and see all the updated odds. Remember to use promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. The Knicks had a game on Saturday, and they won in what was Emmanuel Quickley and RJ Barrett's homecoming, I guess you could call it. Their first game back after the trade to Toronto.
It was a Precious Achua revenge game, actually.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure people will go with that. But yeah, I mean, the Knicks, I thought they thoroughly dismantled a Raptors team that, look, they've traded OG Anunoby now. Obviously, they also traded Pascal Siakam. They're definitely still in flux as they reshape their roster. And the Knicks capitalized on that by beating the shit out of them inside. And obviously, with Jakob Poeltl out, that made it a lot easier. And, it was kind of a beatdown, aside from the turnovers that the Knicks struggled with to start the game and that they've struggled with since making the OG Anunoby trade. I believe they're number one in the league in turnover percentage right now, since that point, I should say. But once they clean up the turnovers, this game was pretty much just a total. They were fighting in different weight classes, and if the Knicks shot better from three, I feel like this game really could have gotten ugly a lot sooner. But honestly, just very, very impressed with how the Knicks handled that. I thought, obviously, for the players involved on both sides, I think you could tell it was weird in the beginning of the game. I think the fans and the crowd and everybody there treated it appropriately, gave them the applause when they deserved the applause to start the game, when they did little tributes, but we're obviously rooting for the Knicks. And then I also just think like the way the organization handled it, doing the video tribute, I think the way MSG handled it, the coaches, everybody. It just felt like they actually, this was not necessarily the same as like an Alfred Payton return, maybe. I'm not even. I'm trying to think like who that we. I guess when Taj came back, it's definitely
Gallinari, but like the closest thing I think of is Gallinari to losing. That's the last time I can really remember. Like, man, we gave up that guy to losing quickly and RJ because Gallinari also came in at a dark time, and that half season to that point. I mean, we've had some real success, so it might be easy to discount that, but that first half season, he was a big part of kind of building that, right? And he had been here during darker times, and I think that's to me the closest thing to RJ and quickly, even though I'd agree it's not quite the same.
Yeah, and I just thought it was handled really well, and I thought they showed a lot of respect, not just from from the organization, but also like I thought what Randall said after the game. I thought even what Tibbs said prior to the game, I think he was asked about it also after the game. Brunson, all these guys, I just thought it was handled very well, and it was nice to see because I think those guys do deserve respect for their time on the Knicks. I think they were pivotal pieces in a lot of ways in helping turn this team around from laughingstock to a team that looks poised to at least be a pretty consistent playoff team moving forward. And that's a substantial difference between what we had experienced for the past at least 10 years, going back to the Melo years. But so I just thought that was handled really well, and I was really happy to just kind of enjoy that part of it. And also, it made it a lot easier to be happy about that stuff because the Knicks took care of business and kicked ass. Like, I thought that was really,
and I think
it was impressive.
It was the best of both worlds, right? Because quickly had a double-double, probably needed to be more aggressive in the second half. RJ had 20 on 15. I thought he played well, not on defense, but they asked him to guard Jalen Brunson, and I don't know that there's too many. The one guy who might be most equipped to guard Jalen Brunson is a starting small forward now, right? So I think that that's just an impossible task for a lot of people. I mean, I think it was the best you could hope for from that game because I think Arjun quickly played well. They had their moments, but it showed that the Knicks, the Raptors now are retooling and building a new team, and you got, but you saw that kind of the bright spots from the guys the Knicks developed. We still want them to do well in their career. It helps, by the way, the Knicks if they do well in their career because it lends credibility to the organization's development skills. So we complain a lot like, oh, they let Obi go and he's shooting 9,000% at the rim and shooting well from three. It's like, well, that kind of reflects well on the organization in some ways. And I think all of these guys have left and done reasonably. Even Frank, he's stuck around. So I think that's the thing. I do want to talk about this game a lot from both sides. I'm going to ask a question first because I saw it. I think you even complained about this. Like the Raptors play quickly next to Schroeder a lot, and I think part of it is that since being traded to the Raptors, Quickly's 2-point percentage has gone down quite a bit. He's asked to do a lot. I'm curious. Do you think Quickly next to Schroeder is necessarily bad? One, and two, if it is, then does that say something about how the fit with Brunson was always to some extent not doomed, but always capped a little bit? I guess the TLDR of that is like if the minutes with Schroeder aren't great for the Raptors, does that make you think maybe it was never really going to work at that level with Brunson anyway?
Well, I actually don't have a problem with him playing with Schroeder. I actually think they play fine off each other. I just think they had a lineup. It was quickly Schroeder and Bruce Brown, and it was just like a bad matchup. I mean, that's specifically what I was talking about. It was I think he put them on the floor against like whatever the hell we had, Grimes, Hart, OG, whatever. And you could just tell they were just getting bullied. And the problem is Schroeder and Brown are not shooters. So Like you're not even getting the benefit of like, well, we're going to go super small and really spread them out. Like you don't get that benefit with that lineup anyway. And then the Knicks were just bigger than them inside all the time. So like, to me, that's what the issue was. I don't really agree with this whole like. I think it's a bullshit. Honestly, I'll just say that. Like maybe it's true. I guess what else? I don't think it's bullshit. The idea that in the long run, Quickly and Brunson probably wouldn't have worked together. I've said that on air that like I think in the long run, the hypothesis that you would run into trouble against the best teams in the league playing and starting Quickly and Brunson together a shit ton of minutes is probably right. I just don't really understand why you would never try it, given that the options you like that Tibbs did lean on for a long portion of that time were inferior by basically every measure. Like I don't really need to litigate the specifics, but like basically every measure, be it offensive rating, defensive rating, EFG, opponent EFG, like all that stuff. It just never bore out. So while I believe that like ultimately there was probably going to be a ceiling, I don't really think that we did we didn't really we can't say it with absolute certainty because we didn't do it. Like we only used it in to close games or at the end between like the first and second quarters and in these little stretches, and they dominated all those situations. So it was at least a strong enough sample to suggest like it's probably worth investigating more, even if you have concerns about the long run. But like, I mean, I just think the main thing for me, and this is where I've talked about this actually a bunch, even before we traded Quickly, is I kind of just I had kind of like dialed back my expectation of him in terms of what do I think he is, like what is his ultimate ceiling. I actually do think his ultimate ceiling is, I don't want to call it a six-man guy, but I think his ultimate ceiling is being an awesome guy who plays off of one or two true stars. And I think that's why all his splits and like the team's offensive and defensive rating when he played off of Brunson and Randall were so elite.
He's a ceiling raiser more than he is a floor raiser.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think he can raise the floor fine. I just think that,
but it's more so the impact like of what when he gets to play. Like I think Lowry is a great, not the same player, but Lowry, Conley, those guys, they look awesome next to stars. They're still very good players without them, but I think that's the type of player he is, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just to me that's just like what I kind of anticipated him as. I think he can still be really good, like being the man. Like I think he can be a 22 whatever. We don't do the numbers, but like say 22-5-5. I think that's what he put up last year when he started for the Knicks. But I think they're working a lot of shit out. Like I think they're all over the place. Their lineups are sloppy, and I get it. They made a lot of trades, so maybe he's just figuring some shit out. I don't know. But like, I think the biggest challenge for him, especially given what they have right now. So, I mean, their big three is like him, Scotty, and RJ. I just think he needs to be a lot more aggressive about hunting shots. And I know that their coach, who personally, like, I'm seeing a lot of telltale signs of fraudulent activity over there by Darko Rajakovic. But I just think like that's what he needs to do, because there were portions of that game where I thought he did a really good job. Like it's good. Like you come out, you want to get your guys involved, get everybody touches. I think that's really good. But there are just stretches of the game where you got to understand like you are like the lead point guard now. You are the lead ball handler. You need to not defer to a guy like Scotty Barnes. You need to not like, you're not in New York anymore. You don't need to defer to RJ Barrett. You don't. Like you need to just understand what your role is. And that I think is going to be the biggest thing for him. For RJ, like, I mean, RJ's RJ. He's going to do what he does. He's going to slash. He's going to try to, he'll hit hopefully enough spot up threes to keep defenses honest over time. I thought some of his defense, and to be fair to him, like the defense for them across the board, it's so obvious that they have guys coming in from different teams and whatever, because they were just so all over the place on their rotations. But like, and that goes for everybody, like Quickly, RJ, everybody. But I just thought RJ had some really like hilariously very RJ defensive moments where he's like pressing Brunson, in the backcourt, and then he gets screened
Fuck
like
around and find out, right?
Yeah, well, he just immediately gets screened and dies on it in the half court, and Brunson pulls up for a jumper or whatever, and it's just like, okay, well, I would rather you have conserved your energy to fight over the fucking screen instead of dying on it and giving Brunson a walk-in three. But anyway, like I just think that I don't really worry about RJ beyond like, will he become good at the things we need him to become, or that they need him to become good at? I don't know. I mean, I just kind of think I don't even want to deal with it anymore. Like, I did the RJ thing for fucking 4.5 years of like, well, if you look at this 10-game stretch and take out this 5-game stretch and then add this 17-game stretch, but remove this 12-game stretch, like I can't do the roller. I don't need to do the roller coaster anymore. He's either going to level out and be solid, or it's just going to be a forever roller coaster and it'll be up and down. Quickly, I just think he needs to like understand the role he's in, and he's got to understand like this is his this is the opportunity that I'm not going to say that he wanted. Like, I mean, yes, I think he wanted to be a starting point guard. I thought it was very obvious during the game, before and after the game, in his quotes, especially. Obviously, we got the Players Tribune letter also. I think this move definitely was a surprise to him, like at least when it happened. And I think he was taken aback, and I think it's been a big adjustment for him. I think he obviously laid down roots in New York, and like I thought what Julius said after the game was really nice, where he talked about like this like New York raised these guys. But I do think that Quickly more so than RJ. I think RJ is just like a lot more. I don't want to say corporate. That makes him sound like a fucking raging asshole. But like he's a lot more just like business-like, maybe in some ways. And so he's able to just stay level-headed and keep the same approach no matter what, for better or worse. I think Quickly was like, it seems like he was a little bit more emotional about it. I mean, it definitely looked like he was like trying not to watch the video during the game so that he wouldn't like cry or something. He even said before the game, kind of as a joke, but like probably true, he was like, I'm just going to have to like try not to cry. So I think it was like, I think it was like kind of tough. And I think it's tough for both of them. Like, you got to understand, these guys, they're 23, 24 years old. This is the team that drafted them. They had never known another team in the NBA other than New York. Obviously, they were fan favorites as well on top of that. And, like, you get traded is one thing. You get traded, you come back, 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks later, and that's tough. Like, that's really hard. They didn't – I mean, in Quickly's Players Tribune piece, right, he talked about, like, he didn't even really have a chance to really say goodbye to his teammates and to coaches and to whoever. And you got to remember, they got traded in the middle of a road trip, right? So they were literally in Orlando when they got traded, or maybe they were in Indiana, wherever the fuck they were. They were in between that transit, and like that's it. Like, they didn't even get a chance to probably even go back to New York and close up shop. They probably had to go pay someone to go do that shit for them, which I'm not asking you to feel bad for them for that, because they have the money to do that. I'm just saying, like, it's a big change. So they're back in the city for the first time. I just think it was like a very emotional thing for them. I'm not surprised they got off to a really good start, and I'm not surprised that the Knicks kicked their ass in the second half and that they couldn't keep up, because like I think that once that emotion was gone, once that initial thing was gone, it was a basketball game. And in this basketball game, the Knicks had the two best players on the floor. They had all the size, like they had an advantage in size in every fucking position, basically. And they bullied them. I mean, they bullied these fucking guys when they still had OG and Pascal over there, right? We bullied them in Toronto. So to do it again was not surprising at all. And I think, once the initial kind of like wave of emotions played out in the first half and they came out for the second half, as soon as that second half started, it was kind of like, I mean, that was a joke. That was like a total, again, it was just a complete mismatch. And aside from deucing on himself for about 4 minutes, that was like it played out exactly that way.
Do you think Deuce and Precious switched skills for the game?
I mean, I know you're asking it as a joke, but like, I've just been less impressed. Like, I've been impressed with Deuce in the sense of like, okay, it's actually important that he is consistently a threat from behind the arc now. And I buy that. I don't
And
think that was
contested, and
yeah.
the degree of difficulty isn't low.
Yeah. So I'm not like I don't think that's an insignificant development. I also think it's important to remember like the Knicks did not pay him to like commit to him as their backup point guard. They paid him because they were like, okay, let's keep this guy's insurance and we can keep him at a number where maybe it's a huge fucking like, maybe we hit and it's a huge fucking bargain, or maybe he's just a guy that we
Well,
can use.
even if he's Javon, I mean, I think he's Javon Carter. Right? They went to the same school, came up under the same coach, very similar skill set, right? That's a good player. I mean, on the high end, maybe he turns into DeAnthony Melton, but it's just if you had asked DeAnthony Melton even to run the Knicks backup offense, that's not going to be great, probably, right? There are things he just can't do right now.
Yeah, and so like, I'm not poo-pooing what we've seen from him, but like I think there were definitely people that were like, oh, like we don't even like maybe we shouldn't get a backup guard because we have Deuce and he needs to get a shot. And it's like, dude, Deuce can't do anything to like create offense right now. Like the only thing he can do is call for a screen and pull up from three. Like that's just one thing that he can do. He doesn't create space. He doesn't blow by anybody.
He's a solid passer, and he doesn't turn the ball over.
Yeah, he's a solid passer. Well, yeah, I mean that was a crazy thing. But like, yeah, he is a solid passer, but he doesn't create advantages enough to leverage that half the time. So like, I'm just it's not entirely surprising to me that he had to crap his pants stretch against a team. Was I surprised that it was against Toronto and that was very specifically against Dennis Schroeder? Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that. But it was his handle is not particularly great. And
he doesn't have. Well, I think his handle is less the issue than I think he just doesn't have that much burst.
I also just think he plays into it. I mean, I think some of that stuff is
mental.
You don't need burst to like bring the ball up the floor. Like you just need to like be able to like bring the ball to the floor does not require you to be like uber athlete or something. Like he just was struggling to do that basic thing under pressure. So yeah, look, I'm not like, oh, like we got to get rid of Deuce. What a horrible like that. No, it's fine.
It's not a reason to not trade for a guard who can do those things, right?
I mean, it was very much like obvious exactly why you need to trade. I mean, it's been obvious to anybody with a clue. Like even the games that he's played well, the Memphis game and the Orlando game that he started in place of Brunson. Yeah, like it's cool that he shot well. And I'm not being facetious. Like it is good to see that he shot well. And I thought he acquitted himself fairly well against Jalen Suggs, all things considered, how good Jalen Suggs is defensively. But like the Knicks scored 106 against the skeleton squad Grizzlies team, and then they scored 94 at home against the Magic. Like that does say something about you as a point guard. And that's really what the Knicks are missing is they're missing another guy. And maybe Deuce can become that in time, but betting on if the Knicks which I don't think they're going to do, but if their plan seriously at this deadline was like, you know what, we love Deuce. We think Deuce is going to do it. I'd be like, you're fucking idiot. And you just pissed away a season because this team is now too good to make bets like that with actual playing time and a rotation spot. Like, do you remember when Memphis, their big move was like, all right, let's trade up and take on a garbage salary for Zaire fucking Williams to draft Zaire Williams. He went up 7 spots in the draft, and then they handed Zaire Williams. I mean, Zach just wrote a really good piece over the weekend comparing kind of the Knicks and Grizzlies trajectory.
Zach Blatter, we should not low
as franchises, but like the Zaire Williams thing was insane because it's like you're a good team. You can't just like your plan cannot any longer be, oh yeah, no, we'll just give these 15, 20 minutes a night to this actual very good player. Like to this rookie who may or may not be good as a development guy, whatever. Like the Knicks are too good now to be like, well, we just believe in Deuce, so we're going to keep giving him his backup minutes every night, no matter what. And like, I'm okay with that. They've graduated to a different level. That doesn't mean you give up on Deuce, but it does mean if Deuce wants minutes, if Deuce is gonna like Deuce has to earn minutes. He's got to take minutes. And right now he's not played well enough to do that. And like the same thing goes for Grimes. Like, like I think he's obviously a different level of player, at least as far as what he's shown in the NBA.
But he's more suited for what they're asking him to do.
Yeah.
Right? Which is to catch and shoot and defend, right? So.
And also just like if Grimes has a little bit more he has more competition in the spot, and at the end of the day, I'm okay with him having to earn his minutes out. Do I think that the minutes allocation he's received throughout the year, even on nights he's played well, makes sense? No, I don't. But that's a different thing. Like, I'm just saying these guys are now in a position where you can't just hand them.
We're not a developmental team anymore.
Yeah, we're a good team. Like, again, and that doesn't mean you give up on young guys, but it also means that if young guys are going to make it, they've got to like really be worth it. Yeah, they've got to really be worth it. They can't just come in and be like, well, I was the 22nd pick. Cool, dude. We don't give a shit.
Yeah, I mean, with Deuce, if all Deuce was asked to do, right, was to provide defense, some secondary ball handling, and make shots, he's good at that. That is not that doesn't fulfill what they are asking of him, right? So that's where, I mean, if they did trade Grimes, he's still going to get minutes. I do think if they trade Grimes, though, I think Deuce has done enough where if they trade Grimes, I'm not in favor of trading Grimes for a poor defensive player, but let's say they trade him for Terry Rozier. You will probably see that that Deuce remains a fixture in the rotation, and he plays in that lineup. And he's good enough to guard twos. He's good enough to play off ball. He's a very good off ball player. It's just, I think the bigger thing is that you cannot ask him to lead a bench unit. I do want to shift gears a bit here. Going back to the game, so you mentioned the turnovers, and the turnovers have been up for the Knicks since that OG trade. Not coincidentally, people have noted that the Knicks have a lot more cutting, have a lot more movement and ball movement. And if you look, like, the Golden State Warriors, even at their apex, right, when they had some horrible turnover games. The turnovers were a thing for that team, and they're like they are the
they still are.
Yeah, I'm sure they still are, right? That's their philosophy, right? Move the ball a lot. Steph's had some ugly fucking turnovers throughout his career. Is that? Do you think that's the trade-off we're seeing, and do you think that's a worthwhile trade-off? Because the Knicks did make the playoffs as a 5 seed last year through limiting turnovers. That was very much part of, like, and I think a lot of it was analytically driven, why they're okay with maybe a very or more stagnant offense. Now it's less stagnant. They're trying to push the pace a lot more. Do you think that's a worthwhile trade-off? And how do you see that shaking out?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great trade-off. Like, you're never, if Tibbs is ever going to be a productive playoff coach, he can't just keep expecting, like, you're not going to win just playing fucking goal line offense the entire way. It's just not possible. Like, you're not going to do it. And there's a reason why every single one of his offenses from regular season to the playoffs has cratered, because you just cannot do that. It's not possible in the NBA at this point. Like, yes, I know the game is more ISO heavy in the playoffs. Yes, I know all this stuff, but like, if your entire thing is just like 4 rounds of like, we're just going to have, I'm just trust my best guy to create in ISO situations, like, that's not good enough. And we saw that last year. All it took was, if Julius Randle struggles, like, there's nothing you have left, right? And I'm not absolving Julius Randle of his own, kind of responsibility, culpability, I guess, for his struggles in the playoffs. But you need to do more to make life easier for them. Now, I'm not saying everything they're going to do or everything they're doing now guarantees that, like, that'll change, but at least you're seeing an attempt. Like, there is an actual attempt right now of like, okay, we're trying to play faster. We're trying to move the ball more. Guys are cutting more. Some of that might just be personnel, right? Because you take out RJ Barrett, you put an OG and an OB, there's more of a natural off-ball guy versus a guy who clearly wanted a lot of on-ball touches than RJ. And you mix that in playing off of Brunson and Randall and blah, blah, blah. Like, some of that might just be natural consequence of personnel, but it does seem like there's something going on there tactically. And, to the point that I just think like the sample is big enough now where they've been so turnover prone. You've got to believe that like they are okay with leaning into that, like that they are accepting this as a potential risk reward scenario, Tibbs specifically. So I'm fine with that. I think it's good. I think it's a necessary evolution, and I think it'll make life easier for guys like their main guys. Like I think you saw Brunson feed off of this in the Toronto game. You've seen him feed off of Randall playmaking for him a bunch. And I think it'll help Randall too if he can make better decisions with the ball and just see the floor clearer. But like, yeah, I think it's a very good thing, and I think it's a thing that has needed to happen for a while.
Yeah, and it accentuates your core strategy. Like, I think I saw someone post, not to bring up bad memories, but I saw someone post the average depth of target for Mahomes and Allen yesterday, and both was much lower. I think Allen was taking a ton of checkdowns in particular, right? But that's kind of the point, is that in the playoffs, teams are going to take away the biggest risk. And the way to open that up is to take to make them account for other things, right? Make them account for the stuff that maybe they're okay with giving up, but you're like, how okay are you with that, right? And there's this famous talk from Bob Myers at the Sloan Analytics Conference where he talks about in the playoffs, if you're it's like in baseball, right? If you struggle hitting low and away, all that guy is going to see hitting low and away, right? If you struggle with your left hand, they're going to take that away in basketball, right? 2 feet of space turns into 2 inches. All of those are correct, but I think that you hit on a good point. It's like, that doesn't mean you just default to ISO, right? You have to still make them. That's the challenge of the playoffs. You have to make them account for those things, and you have to have an ISO guy to make them beat to make that happen. And I think it accentuates, right? Because if the whole issue, especially when in terms of things like spacing, you have Randall and Brunson who clearly want to get into the paint. If the help defenders have to account for something else, some kind of off-ball movement, just even account for it, even if they're going to take it away anyway. It's still it leaves them less able to because that's what happened against the Hawks, right? Like, the Knicks didn't really stress them at all. They didn't use Bullock like that, right? They didn't use him as a movement guy. It is a counter that lets you get to your stuff in the playoffs, or makes the stuff that maybe isn't the best option, but makes that a better option, right? So I definitely agree. I think the turnovers will probably balance out as they get a little more used to the style of play. But it does capture a little bit more of the best of both worlds for them.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. I just think like it also is a way to alleviate the workload on Brunson and Randall, even before getting a third kind of ball handler, which is clearly, that's obviously, as we just spent a lot of time talking about. That's a tough thing. They don't have it yet, so they will need to overcome that somehow, one way or the other.
Yeah. Before we move on, any other thoughts on the Raptors game? Or
I thought Randall was really good. I thought it was a great matchup for him. He's just taller than everybody. He can see over the floor really well. I think that's part of the reason why his passing was so good in that game. And I will say, like, I know there were people bitching about the turnovers. I didn't really care about almost any of those turnovers. I thought they were all in the effort of trying to do something productive for the team. And they were not the type of Randall turnovers that you get pissed off about. They're the type of Randall turnovers like you'll be like, all right, that's annoying, but I get what you're trying to do. That's fine. This is not him backing down.
Are you at all concerned? He reminds me a little bit of a quarterback who is like not maybe great at processing his reads. And so if he's a little bit off by like half second at a time, he makes up for it with crazy velocity, which can be a dangerous thing to rely on unless you're, Brett Favre in football. Do you think that does that concern you? Because he throws all his passes now at like 100 miles per hour, which is like fun to watch, but also a little bit risky, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's a good processor, so it's not really like I don't know. I'm not really surprised by that. Like that's my main concern with him. But I thought he processed fine in this game. I didn't think his processing was the issue. I think his execution at times was. Some of the passes he threw were really, he had like actually found a chew on a really nice look, but he like fucking gunned it at him under the rim and he couldn't gather it. There were a couple others. Like I didn't think his processing was really the issue in this game. To be completely honest.
Well, I mean, I what I'm saying is that having to gun it may be the fact that he doesn't trust his processing. So, like, if your margin of time is a lot lower, because
I just don't think he's a touch passer. When do you ever see him make a touch pass? He just doesn't have it. Like, I don't think it's about processing at all. I think he doesn't have that like pass. He just doesn't pass like that. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes sense. I do think it's related, or at least it kind of has roots in just feeling like he needs to make quick decisions, but or he has less time than maybe guys who do see a move or two ahead. I do want to talk about this third ball handler point. So some of the guys the Knicks have been rumored to be interested in are Bruce Brown, Terry Rozier, obviously Dejounte Murray. Today there was stuff coming out about D'Angelo Russell. The Hawks trying to find a place for him if they do execute a Dejounte Murray trade with LA. Do you have a list of guys? Do you have a ranking, or in terms of priority, who would you prefer? They've obviously been connected to Bruce Brown. There's some debatability about how viable he might be as that second unit leading ball handler and fitting next to the starting unit. But I'm curious to your thoughts there.
Just in terms of like,
who are you looking for? I didn't even mention Brogdon, but Brogdon's obviously up there. Dan, I don't know if it's Favale or Favale. Favale, yeah. Dan Favale had a pretty good piece on a lot of trades, and he did seem to think that the Knicks could get Brogdon for Fournier and a first, which I think that's probably the standing offer they have for most of these guys. It's just they would ideally probably not want to give up Quentin Grimes. But do you have an order of preference in terms of what move you want them to make, or how are you thinking about that?
I mean, I just think they need somebody who gets into the paint. Like, I don't think it's that complicated. Brogdon, to me, is pretty obviously the best choice because I think he'd buy into coming off the bench. I think you can close with him if you want to. He's big enough to play next to Brunson in certain lineups and against certain opponents. And then, I just like the fact that he, again, gets in the paint. He makes good decisions. He's a good drive and kick guy. They don't have that. He's a good 3-point shooter, really good catch and shoot guy. He's also a really good free throw shooter. So I would be all in, or not all in, but I think he's
pretty willing to give up Grimes if that was needed as a sweetener.
No, and I don't really understand, like, all these teams they can keep putting out there, like, oh, we want a young player to pick, You're not going to get a young player to pick for guys like Brogdon. Like, he didn't return the young player he returned a couple years ago was guys they just didn't fucking care about and like didn't value. It's like Aaron Nesmith, who, congrats to him on becoming like a decent NBA player, but he wasn't valued as that. He was just valued as a sunk cost. Like, all right, yeah, well, we got to give this guy up to get him. Cool, great, whatever.
Do you think the Knicks might be viewing Grimes?
Grimes' value is beyond that. So, what?
No, I was just asking. Yeah, do you think the Knicks value Grimes the same way?
No, they value him. They 100% value him more than that. I mean, I know he's had a struggle this year, but Jesus, like, they're actually going to value him as like dead salary in the deal to make it work. So I don't know. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't trade Grimes right now. I think it's stupid to trade Grimes right now. I think you're trading him at his lowest value, and I think you're also. It's very obvious to me that entire group of players that plays a lot with the bench, Grimes, Hart, OG, that lineup, even Precious, they benefit so much from a guy that's like a legitimate ball handler. And, Brogdon he's not an all-star, but he's pretty fucking solid at that thing. Like, he's solid at just running an offense off the bench. And he can get you buckets when you need them. He can spot up again off others. I just think he makes a lot of sense.
Is there any one of the guys that have been mentioned that you would trade Grimes for?
Maybe Rozier.
You wouldn't trade him even if it was just Fournier and a protected first. Yeah, I mean Rozier has like really good counting stats. Putting up 24 and 7 this year. I think he has a long wingspan, so the defense has not been good, but Charlotte is kind of a shit show, so I don't really know that how much of that is his fault. But I did want to talk a little bit about Dejounte Murray because if the asking price really is just D'Angelo Russell, who Atlanta,
I just don't want Dejounte Murray. I don't. I'm just gonna put it. I don't want Dejounte Murray. I just don't want him on this team.
Even if the cost was just Fournier,
I don't care. The cost
Fournier
could
in
be
a first.
my fucking right ass cheek, and I wouldn't want it.
Well, that sounds like pretty valuable to give up. So
yeah. Well, I'm just saying. He's not good. I'm shutting this down because I'm so sick and tired of believing that Dejounte Murray is going to come here and come off the bench. And I'm not breaking up the starting lineup for Dejounte Murray. I'm sorry, I'm not. That starting lineup has been fucking awesome. They fit together well. They're developing.
But they've had their net rating stats. Press posts this too. Even when Hart plays the two in that lineup, they play well. They played well with Grimes. Like
we're doing the thing. We're gonna pretend that Josh Hart at the 2 is awesome. Is that what we're doing?
No, but I would say, as someone who hates the idea of Josh Hart at the 2,
look at the teams they've played well when Josh Hart's the 2. Go look at those teams.
But maybe that starting lineup is just so good around that it's immune. And like for the playoffs, you just add
but even then, what is Josh Hart's usage?
I don't know, like 16% or something.
16, probably some shit like that. What's DiVincenzo's usage?
Probably a little bit higher, but yeah.
Now, what is Dejounte Murray's usage?
Yeah, I mean, but the idea is that you will need more usage when teams are keying in on Brunson and Randall in the playoffs, right?
So are we winning?
We don't want to go in with Reggie Bullock.
So we're going to win the chip with Dejounte Murray?
Well, that's what I'm asking. Because the guy is whatever. I don't love the fit either. He is averaging 21, 6, and 5. He's putting up really good shooting numbers. Small sample size. Cran just actually had a good post because the Lakers are interested about how his his shooting numbers according to B-Ball Index have been his grades have been like F, D every year. And then this year it's back to an A, but the volume is low, right? The difficulty, if you adjust for difficulty and how many shots and how he's shooting, he looks really good. So I get that like that still doesn't signify a guy who's maybe the shooting leap is temporary or it's an aberration. It looks like an aberration, but he gives you another he is probably the best creator that's available, right? The guy, is putting up real numbers. So, and yeah, like it does seem a little unfair to just assume he's not going to buy in, right? Because Atlanta.
Why is that unfair? What about his career?
Because Atlanta's kind of
what about his career? The guy's he's fucking 27 or 28 years old right now. Who the fuck at that
25, right?
Who the fuck at that age is like, oh, you know what? I'm done being a starter. I'll be the sixth man. I'm happy to sacrifice the team. Like people, I think this is what's. You are not saying this, but there are people that were like, we have to trade quickly because he will never. He wants to start, so we have to do it because he wants to start. So we can't keep him. Can't do it. Can't do that. But now Dejounte Murray, who's only fucking started for the last 4 fucking years of his fucking career, who had a 40 usage 3 years ago, who's still a high usage guy. He's gonna come to New York, and out of the goodness of his heart, in the middle of his fucking prime, he's gonna be like, oh, you know what? I'll play 20 minutes a night off the bench to give Brunson a rest. Give me a break, dude. The guy thinks he's better than Brunson, which I'm not that. That's the mindset these guys have. He thinks he is an elite point guard. That's what he thinks. He's an elite point guard. Whether I agree, you agree, somebody disagrees, it doesn't matter. That's what he believes. There is zero fucking shot the guy's coming here and
have you talked to him about it?
I have a fucking brain. He's not gonna come to New York and be like, oh, let me come off the bench because now I'm a fucking team player. Really? Have you watched some of these games he's been playing lately for Atlanta, by the way? Go watch some of his shit down the stretch where he'll bring the ball up and he is not even pretending to look off Trey. He's just not even looking at him. He's just like, nope, I'm coming up. I'm taking the shot. And that's fine. I don't think that necessarily means he's an asshole. I'm trying to make a point. Like, I don't want somebody coming in here who isn't better than Brunson, who isn't better than Randall, to all of a sudden like required to be like he's going to require us to treat him at the same level. And I'm sorry, he's not good enough. He's flat out not good enough for that. Like, if it's a better player than him, like, I actually think Rozier is a flat out better than player than him. I think he's a way superior offensive fit. So I'd consider it for that. I think it's like worth considering. I know that
Rozier is a better creator
easily. Oh yeah, for what we want, for what we need.
No, even in a vacuum. Let's say in a vacuum, who do you think is the better player?
I mean, just in terms of scoring,
in terms of creation, which is both for yourself and others, right?
I mean, I don't know. I think I don't know. I'll say Rozier. I don't know. I don't have a strong feeling about this because I don't think either of these guys is capable of being a creator for an actual good team, the main guy for an actual good team. But I do think if you were to say, oh, they will buy into being a third option, the guy who actually has a skill set that makes sense for that is Rozier offensively. Now, if you want to say defensive concerns, I hear that. Like, I think that's a very fair concern to have. His defensive ability, or not abilities, but his defensive impact in Charlotte has fallen off a cliff, much like Dejounte's did in Atlanta. But like, if you want to give Dejounte the benefit of the doubt of like, oh, well, he'll come to a serious situation and then he'll be better just because he'll start carrying again. I mean, I would 100,000% rather take that bet on a guy like Rozier, given what I feel is a significantly superior offensive complement to both Brunson and Randall. So I just, again, like, guys don't just leave in the middle of their prime. They don't, like, he wants out of Atlanta for a reason. Okay. That reason to me is probably not, I'll go play off the bench for somebody because I just want to like be on a contender now forever. Like, I'm sorry. If I could know, if you told me Dejounte Murray will be fine playing 20, 22 minutes, 23 minutes a night off the bench, being the sixth man, a creator, I'd be like, fine, fuck it, do it. But he's not going to. Like, this entire fucking Dejounte Murray thing is based on the most delusional fucking hypothetical. Oh, what if this guy who thinks he's an all-star comes off the bench for us for 20 minutes a night because the spirit of fucking Manu Ginobili visited him and now he's all about the team and that's all he cares about. It's ridiculous. Like, it's not going to happen. The guy wants to go somewhere and be a lead guard. That's what he wants. Okay, and I just think, like, you know, I'm not fucking up that starting lineup for the potential hypothetical upside of Dejounte Murray unlocking something with this group. I just don't get it. Like, that lineup is awesome. Dante DiVincenzo is really good in that lineup. He shoots the shit out of the ball. It's a great compliment to Brunson. It's a great compliment to Randall. And him and Randall have a really nice chemistry that's developing. And we know Brunson and him have a natural chemistry. Like, punting on that for Dejounte Murray is, I think it's fucking crazy. I think that's the type of trade like Isaiah Thomas would jerk himself raw to. And if you're fucking touching yourself over trades that Isaiah Thomas would be like sitting in the trade machine, just fucking with a whole bottle of lotion next to him, thinking about, like, you've got a problem. I'm sorry.
You need to go see fucking Chatterbait or something, right?
Yeah. You need to just get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm sorry. This Dejounte Murray thing infuriates me because I don't understand the conversation. It's like, oh, look, we have fucking like, oh, we have Patrick Mahomes. What if we get Trevor Lawrence too? Okay, like, are we gonna run? We're running fucking like Wildcat or something. Like what are we doing exactly with Trevor Lawrence? And it just, you don't need what Dejounte Murray gives you. He's not good enough. Like, if there's overlap in skills, the overlap can be okay.
You also said that the Knicks' biggest need is interior scoring, which I don't necessarily agree with, but
he's not a good interior scorer.
He gets the paint a lot. He shoots really well from the mid range.
That's not the fucking scoring they need. They need somebody that's actually going to collapse.
Is he bad at the rim?
He is. This is his like career season. Okay, this season that he's having right now. This is the career Dejounte Murray offensive juggernaut peak of his powers. This is what he's averaging: 21, 5 and 5, good, on 47, 38, 83 splits, also very good. His true shooting percentage is all of 56.5. And this is, while he's shooting, to be very clear, he is shooting 55.4% at the rim, which is a career low right now. 53.5% from 3 to 10 feet, which is a career high. 44.7% from 10 to 16 feet, which is just about his career level. And then 55% from long two, which is a massive career high. It's also 9 percentage points higher than his career average from that range. And then 38.2% from three, which is 4% above his career average. Do you like? Maybe he's become a better shooter. It's very possible. This is like a natural shooting arc that he's going. I see numbers like that and I fucking worry, especially when the impact still sucks on the floor. Minus 3.6 on, minus 3.8 on off. The numbers with him and Trey have been ass. So that at least gives you a window into potentially what the fit between Brunson and Murray could be. And I understand Brunson's a very different player than Trey. So maybe and obviously it's a different team, different system, whatever. But like, I just don't really see that as promising. And all of this is under this, it's mostly seems to be this weird hypothetical that people are coming up with of like Dejounte is available for this cut price now, but once we get him, now he will become this awesome headline piece that we can send out to anchor a star trade. Like, I don't know. That all that stuff to me is just like, I don't know. That's like cocaine brain fucking craziness. I don't get it. Like, so the guy isn't worth all this right now, but once he throws on a Knicks jersey, it's holy shit, this fucking guy. We got to trade Devin Booker for him right now. Like, I think it's all bullshit. Like, if you think the talent's worth it, just say that, and that's fine. Like, if you like, because an overlap in skills is fine if the talent that you're betting on is like LeBron James and Dwayne Wade were not an ideal fit. Do you think anybody gave a shit? No, because you were like, well, sure, but like they can figure it out. Like, they're both
You don't
wings.
think Brunson and Dejounte could be like Clyde Frazier and Earl Monroe?
No, I think Brunson could be one of those guys. I don't think Dejounte has a fucking shot in hell.
You don't think he's as good as Earl Monroe?
I don't know. I don't. But like so that when the overlap occurs with such an overwhelming talent, where you're like, even if it's a little bit clunky, even if we're not totally maximizing each guy's individual output, the collective is going to be so ridiculous it doesn't matter. That is not what this is. It's not what this is. Like, I don't see it as, for me personally, if you told me we could get Steph Curry, I'd be like, man, I don't really know how they fit, but
you would be worried about the fit with Steph Curry? That's
insane.
Saying,
no, I don't think it's insane. I think it's
just that might be the best on-ball.
Yeah, but he still does shit on ball, and the shit he does off ball is also unlocked in a lot of ways because of like everything Golden State does. And more, I'm just saying, like, defensively, there would definitely be issues there. Like, that's just a fact. There would 100% be issues there. So I'm just saying, like, there's concerns to be had there. But I would still be like, okay, but we get Steph Curry? Like, yeah, like, let's do that, and then we'll figure it out. Like,
even Mitchell, right? Mitchell, the same concerns exist, but I would prefer that.
I'm more open to that now. I'm more open to Mitchell now than I have been previously.
Because we have OG?
Because we have OG, because I've seen how impactful OG is, because Mitchell's actually played pretty well this year defensively. And the thing I find interesting, you know, is that something you might be interested in?
Might be interesting.
But like, you know, or like, you know, the thing about Gilly I find so interesting. All right, Sam, we get it. but like, his playmaking is really what stands out to me when I've watched him this year with the Cavs. Not so, I mean, the scoring, we know he can always score, but like, he's really taken a step up as a playmaker. And that step up to me is interesting to see, you know, to think about, like, okay, like, I'm not sure that you can win with Brunson, Mitchell, Randall as your big three. But let's say you still have concerns about Randall and you're eventually thinking you're going to have to move him anyway. I do think it's interesting to think about, like, if Brunson and Mitchell were your top two guys, and then like everybody else is just kind of like you get like another guy off the bench. Like, I don't know. I just think it's interesting to think of if those two were your top two, how would you construct a roster from there, especially knowing that we have OG now? That's
You
interesting
probably
thought.
still have Randall at that point, right? So
Yeah, I just think it's like I've seen enough where I'm like, okay, I don't know that this is going to work. I actually have a lot of concerns that will work. I do think there's a bunch of overlap and some clunkiness, but Donovan Mitchell is a clear-cut superior talent than Dejounte Murray to me. And like I think him and Brunson are in the same tier of player. So if they're in the same tier of player, and I think Brunson's a star, then to get Mitchell is like a no-brainer, like not a no-brainer, but it's like I can rationalize that. I can understand it. I can totally get the vision. With Dejounte Murray, I'm like the vision is like he's good and he's gonna do this thing that we don't actually have any knowledge that he's gonna do of accepting this lower usage role. And then because he does this and he plays in New York, he's gonna morph into like this high value asset when we do trade for a star. It's just built on so many what ifs, and I don't know. I'm sorry, like the Dejounte thing is just so uninteresting to me and so uninspiring and so boring. It's just like, oh, he's the fucking name that's out there. So people are acting like we got to get him. And it's just like, dude, I'm honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I think I'd be much more content just like doing Brogdon and fucking, and that would make me a lot happier.
yeah, I mean, I'm inclined to agree with that. I don't. I think Murray is really good. Like, I think that's a thing. I tend to feel like I would bias a little bit more probably than you into getting talent and figuring it out, especially if shooting and spacing isn't the issue. And maybe it still will be, right? Because this is still half a season, really, right? Career year and all that. Um, but I mean, do you think is the Knicks play? Do you think right now? Do you think they're just like there's a bunch of guys available that teams are probably going to move? Who does Fournier in a first get you? Once it shakes out, we just hop on who's left.
I don't understand what you're saying.
I mean, it's the Knicks strategy, right? More than looking at one guy. They have all these guys, right? Bruce Brown, Brogdon, Rozier, Clarkson, Murray. They've all been rumored to all of them. Do you think they're just like it's still 11:30 at the bar, and they're just waiting out? It's like who's left at 2 a.m. Or do you think there's more of a stringent order of priority there?
I think they have a price that they're willing to pay right now, and my guess is they aren't really going to budge on it because they don't view any of these guys as
game changers.
They're functionally useful for the immediate term, and they're functionally useful as contracts to eventually get whoever you actually want, but they're not going to make this team a contender. And I think that probably I'm maybe a little bit higher on like what the upside of like a Rozier could be, but I generally agree with that. Like I don't think that any of these guys really make them a contender. I do think Brogdon would be interesting if he can just stay healthy, which is a big if, obviously. Just because the bench has been so bad. They've been so bad that you're like, man, if they could just get anything out of that group, like they might start fucking just like, I mean, they've already been dismantling teams, but if you're getting like actual production and not like random Precious Achua, 14-point quarters, over the fuck it was in the fourth, like genuine steady production from the bench, this team could be a juggernaut, man. Like, I mean, I'll be honest. Like every time I watch us and the starters go off, I'm always just thinking in my head, like, man, if we could have just done that trade without giving up quickly, this team's a contender. So I'm a little bit maybe more bullish on what Brogdon would do for them than other guys, but like, I don't know, man. Dejounte just does not do shit for me. I just think he'd be really miserable, and I think it'd be a dangerous thing. I feel like part of the like they talked about this. Part of the reason they made the fucking move they made, not obviously the major reason, but part of the reason was like they understood like guys were not happy about their roles and minutes and situation in the locker room and they needed to handle it and blah 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 blah. And like I just think Dejounte is like, man, that's something you want to recreate the powder keg again and light a match, like because you're talking about. I mean, we were sitting here talking about like Grimes minutes post trade, and we're like, what the fuck? Why isn't he playing more? How can we get him more minutes? Do you like if the guy was here after Dejounte trade, he'd be pissed. And even if
he'd
he's
probably get 30 minutes, just at the expense of that's what would happen. He would get 30 minutes at the expense of DiVincenzo.
right, and I just don't understand that. I think that's a problem. Like I like we can talk
in the
about
playoffs because in the playoffs you probably don't want DiVincenzo out there. The Warriors didn't do it, right? DiVincenzo had a great year, wasn't good. They were willing to go to Jordan Poole minutes, right? Because DiVincenzo can't really create for himself the same way. So you do need that. At some point, it would even make sense. And Murray gives you more scoring punch, right? Or more creation.
I mean, he can, but do I care about it? Like, is he actually at the level that matters? There's also the downside risk of like forgetting, like, oh, like Murray's going to come here and there'll be beef in the locker room. What if Murray comes here and he just has a bad close to the year because he's like in a different team and like, what if that happens? Then are we still talking about him like, oh man, this was such a smart move because we got him for so little and now we can throw him in a trade for Devin Booker and he's a big name. Like, I think it's the opposite. I think people are viewing this as a no risk trade, and I think it's a fucking mistake. I think it's a big risk. I think it's a big risk on the court this year. I think it's a big risk in terms of fit. I think it's a big risk in terms of does he maintain his value going into that extension that's going to kick in after this year, or does he elevate his status, or does his status come down? I don't know. I think people are really minimizing the downsides while playing up the upsides, and I don't even think the upsides are very significant because I just don't really buy him as some elite creator.
Would you rather have Murray or DeMar DeRozan?
Neither.
If you had to choose one.
Murray, I guess.
Because he's younger? Or...
Yeah, he's younger. I think he's definitely more explosive. He's more talented for sure overall. The DeRozan thing, I don't get at all. Like, the guy's going to come in and come off the bench. He doesn't think of himself as a bench player. It's all bullshit. Like, this is why you go get a guy like Brogdon or fucking Bruce Brown, where it's like, yeah, maybe they don't open up any championship upside, but those guys will come here and they'll be like, okay, cool, I'm coming off the bench, fine. I'm fine with that for at least the rest of this year.
The Knicks, the one bad part of that Raptors game is that Isaiah Hartenstein got hurt. They called it a sore ankle in the game. Afterwards, I believe Tibbs confirmed that it was a sprain.
He said it was a sprain, but then they came back and clarified that it was a sore ankle.
Okay, so maybe not a sprain. I've been going through a sprained ankle for the last month and a half. I can definitely say whenever I used to say, here's sprain, I used to think, oh, it's just a little hurt, put some dirt on it. It is a real thing. It means your ligament's torn, and it fucking sucks. So if it's not that is definitely good news. But it definitely appears he'll miss at least one game. They've been doing a little bit more media availability for Sims and Precious. Do you think this? I mean, I think that if they have to play against the Nuggets without Hartenstein, Jokic might get 70 points or like 45 assists, or both. But leaving that aside, do you think Tibbs, is this when we're finally going to see extended Randall at the 5 minutes?
Extended?
Yes.
Yeah, I doubt it. Extended? I don't think so. You'll get some, but you're not going to get extended.
But without extended, you're playing Sims and Precious, some combination of those two, 40 minutes.
That's correct. Yes, that is correct.
That is not what you would do, I would imagine.
No, I would. You have to. Got to have a big man out there.
Even if I think both of them, is Sims even taller than Randall?
I don't know. He definitely doesn't play bigger than Randall. I'll tell you that.
Well, I mean, he has the hops, but he has a wingspan. So the standing reach is probably higher, but Randall's probably the same strength, weight, and height. I think I'm super curious because they have Brooklyn tomorrow, right?
Yes, correct.
So they got Brooklyn. I'm very curious because I think if Nick Claxton probably can't guard Randall one-on-one, not in the paint. I would be very curious to see that. And how much we've complained about Tibbs a lot. like you have been on Twitter and you have said if Randall does not play or Randall doesn't play at the 5, pretty significant minutes, that's a fireable offense at this point for Tibbs. Do you think these next couple of games, if he doesn't play extended minutes, is that going to sour you on Tibbs even more?
Yeah, no, 100%. If he doesn't play Randall the 5 at this point, then he's
but extended minutes. We made that distinction. So I want to say, like, do you think that's the threshold?
What's define extended minutes?
15 minutes of Randall to 5. With no Isaiah Hartenstein.
Yeah, no, I mean I get that.
I think that's conservative, by the way, or like that's low end, right?
I think it's low end, but I'm just trying to put myself in like what I could reasonably expect from Tibbs. I feel like if he gave me like 12, I'd be like, all right, that's fine. But like, I have no faith in him to do that. I really don't.
12 minutes or inches? Yeah, I mean, I think with that, I think it's a lost opportunity, right? Because you have this incredible, like that's the thing. If you're we love this OG trade, even just playing the 3 all the time and showing up the backup 4 minutes, which the Knicks, by the way, the one thing that's talked about less, the Knicks have become an elite defensive rebounding team. Hartenstein deserves a lot of credit, but they lost Mitchell Robinson, and going from Hart as the backup 4, RJ as the backup 4, to OG, that's been as big a thing as anything else. Yes, those minutes are coming next to Hartenstein, but clearly the defensive rebounding was something they struggled with. And they are now, I think they've been top in defensive rebounding percentage since the OG Anunoby trade.
They have.
So he gives you all of these things. And if he's if you can unlock Randall to 5, that is what can push you over the edge against a team that you have equal talent to, or maybe even slightly less talent. They lost to a team. Is it fair to say they lost to a team with inferior talent last year in the playoffs?
The Knicks?
Yeah. I think we should just be able to admit that, right?
Yeah.
I'm not as big on Jimmy Butler as you. I'll put it like that.
Well, I'm not very big on Jimmy Butler this year. I think he might be.
I didn't think he was that impressive in our playoff series.
Yeah, but that's because
Bam was the best player.
Tried to kill him. Remember?
Yeah, Jesus. I thought Bam was their best player. Bam, because of just how insane his defense was, may have had an argument over Brunson. Brunson was putting up 40 though, so whatever. What I'm making is, if you want to win a series where talent is close, that is what's going to come down to that kind of adjustment. And I would be really, really, it would make me a lot more discouraged about this team if we weren't going to that even now, to see if Randall opens those things up. Because some of the teams, I think it could really be important. Indiana's going to go small with Siakam. That's a great opportunity to put Randall out there at the 5. And Indiana with the Siakam trade, I do think you have to consider them now, at least in the next weight class, if not a little bit higher. Boston is going to play Porzingis. I think that's a matchup worth exploring, because Porzingis isn't really like a low post player. He's a good offensive rebounder, but he spends so much time outside at the 3-point line that, that maybe is something you can live with. Milwaukee, right? Like, they go small sometimes with Portis or Giannis at the 5. I think Randall has guarded both of those guys, right? So that has to be in your bag, especially if you want to beat a team that maybe doesn't, that you're not, because there's no one, I think, besides maybe the Nuggets, because I think Jokic is just that good, who is head and shoulders above the Knicks in talent. If they lose, it is going to be because Boston is playing Boston is playing at their absolute best level, or you didn't win. You didn't find something like that, and the other team did. Right? That's what Miami found. That's why we lost to what I believe was an inferior talent-wise team.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know how to respond, I guess.
Well, the danger is that Precious is good enough to like meet that Mendoza line where Tibbs's Mendoza line for big play is probably a lot lower than ours. where Tibbs is like, all right, fine, I don't care. Or at least we're not getting beat up on the glass, or we don't look small. Do you think, like, I feel like if Precious doesn't even hit that, which maybe he won't, he had one good game so far where the other team had given up. I think that might push him to try this, and maybe this is what we needed, right? Like David Lee got hurt for the Warriors. That's what forced Steve Kerr.
I think he'll try it, but I personally am not. I'm not I don't think the Isaiah Hartenstein thing is going to be like. I get that because the Knicks are weird with injuries, we can't say this for sure. But like, it feels like this is probably more of a maybe he misses a game or 2 games, maybe 3 max, but it feels like he'll be back. I just don't think he's going to see enough in that small of a sample for it to matter. I just don't. And even if it does, look, we know Tibbs. Like, for better or worse, we know this. Like, if he does not want to do something, it doesn't matter what he sees for how long he sees it. He's just not going to do it. We know this based on his entire fucking time as a coach in the Knicks. If he doesn't fundamentally believe it matters or will work in the playoffs or against a contender or whatever the fuck his standard is, then he just will. Even if it does work in this small sample, in his head he'll be like, well, that's good that it worked now, but like I'm not trying this against the Bucks. I'm not trying this against the Heat. I'm not trying against the Celtics. Like he just won't do it. So it's all well and good to like see it and maybe he'll adopt it, but I'm not going to hold my breath.
Yeah, that's fair. If in case, I mean, it's worth noting one of the games that Hartenstein would be out against if he did miss 2 games would be Denver. What's your over under on Jokic's numbers in that game if they play him without Hartenstein?
Like, I don't know, like a fucking 35 plus point, 35, 15 or something like that.
Doesn't play the 4th probably either.
Yeah, it'll just be ridiculous. Like you just need, at that point, you would need to hope for like them to choose to rest a bunch of guys or something.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Looking forward to this next stretch. So the Knicks, I believe, have 8 home games in their next 10 games.
They do.
Pretty manageable schedule. They do have
one
Denver
of the road games is the Nets game, which is not a road game.
Yeah, and then the other road game, I believe, is Hornets, which is not a very good team right now. They do have home games against Indiana, LA, Miami, and Denver. At least one of those, to me, I would expect to be a loss. They have played Indiana poorly this year, even though I think they're capable of playing much better. And Indiana just got Siakam. Lakers are LeBron and AD. They're not a good team right now, but they have LeBron and AD. And the Heat just always seem to play the Knicks tough. What's kind of your thoughts on that stretch? 10 games. I think 9-1 is very much on the table. I don't think I'm just very skeptical of them beating Denver without a functional backup center at this point. Even if Hartenstein played, I think 7-3 would be kind of my Mendoza line. If they went 6-4, that's just starting to be a disappointment for me. But curious to your thoughts on like what you think is reasonable, because they've been on fire since they traded for OG, and this is a very manageable schedule for the next 10 games.
Yeah, I mean the Hartenstein injury makes it a little weird since we don't even know when the fuck he's getting back. But you can see them going. I will say I think this is a trickier schedule than people think, though. I will say that even prior to the injury, like they should beat the Nets, whatever. Obviously, if you lose to the Nuggets, it's not exactly like the end of the world. They did go into Boston and give them their first home loss of the year. Miami's
champs.
Right? Yeah, so. Exactly. Miami is Miami, so that and it's a weird Saturday matinee game. Like, okay. Monday they played the Hornets. That should be another cakewalk. But then you get these 2 home games, which are like 3 actually, that are actually like all tricky in their own way. I mean, you get Utah at home, Pacers at home, and Lakers at home. Like Utah's been really good lately. The Pacers obviously just added Siakam, and they've generally been a really good team.
Maybe the Knicks, twice now or once?
Just once. And that was that weird post-trade game. Like we were shorthanded, whatever.
Didn't stop Halliburton from shit talking while he's hurt. Yeah.
He's such a fucking loser. Hopefully he can make a return video. Fucking dumb piece of shit. And then the Lakers, that's a national TV game, I think, 8:30 p.m. on Saturday night. So I'm pretty sure that'll be like the game of the weekend or the fuck they call it. That's always like LeBron at the Garden, whatever, right? That can always be a loss just because of that. Memphis at home should be a win after that, you'd think. And Mavericks at home should be a win after that. And then they get the Pacers again at home. But I mean, that's all before the deadline. So the next 10 games are, or whatever, I don't know, however many games that is.
And
11.
it's worth noting also, right? They have the only back-to-back in this. They have 2 back-to-backs in the stretch. They get the Jazz. I think that's a good point. They get the Hornets in Charlotte. They come home and the next night face the Jazz, a team that plays really hard, is playing really well. I think that's a good point. And their other second game of back-to-back is they don't have. So that's the one second game where maybe you'd expect them to win, but obviously a little bit tougher. But they are operating for the most part on 2 or sometimes 3 days of rest in this stretch.
I mean, the key games in the stretch, you want to take care of business against like the Nets and the Hornets and whatever, and the Grizzlies. Those 3 you want to take care of business against. But if they can beat Miami and they beat the Pacers twice, that's probably fine. Like, even if they lost every other game, which would be annoying, you'd probably be okay there because you're like, okay, well, we lost, these other games, but we did beat the team. That would put us 2-0 against Miami, and that would put us 2-1 against Indiana because we played them twice during the stretch before the All-Star break. Like, I mean, if you do that's enough. That is enough. That to me is like not ideal. But if you told me, all right, you're gonna go 6-5, but your 3 wins are against the dog shit teams, Hornets, Grizzlies, and Nets, and then you'll beat Miami and you'll beat the Pacers twice, so you go 6-5 over the 11. I'd be like, all right, that's not great, but I don't hate that. I could live with that.
It would be disappointing to me, but I hope they beat fucking Dallas, man. I'm so tired of this Kyrie Irving shit. I hated the aftermath of that game. They can't beat Kyrie, all this shit. Like,
is that a thing? Is that a thing people were doing?
Yeah, well, Kyrie Irving is apparently 16-2 against the Knicks since he went to the Nets.
Wow, that's so good. That's awesome for the Nets.
Everything just comes full circle, I guess, like the globe. No, sorry, Kyrie. I think that I don't know. I mean, they're really fucking good right now, man. Like, they shouldn't be losing the Jazz. They shouldn't. I mean, the Pacers, I don't know what they're gonna look like with Siakam. I don't think they should lose. The Lakers are such an unserious team at this point, I think there's a lot of hope there. Speaking of the Lakers, I posted this, and I'm curious to your thoughts on this. My prediction is LeBron James will be a Knick during the calendar year 2024. What are your thoughts on that? Or do you give a percentage or a probability to that?
Is he a free agent after this year or next year?
He can opt out.
So he could be a free agent this summer if he wanted to.
Yeah.
And Bronny's
definitely the summer where his son is eligible to be drafted.
And Bronny's in this draft.
He could be. Bronny has had some not.
He sucks. He's been bad. But his dad is LeBron James.
Prez likes him. So.
Yeah, but his dad is LeBron James. So he'll probably come out. I don't hate it. I mean, I don't hate like the idea.
You think it's likely though, or possible?
I think it's possible. Like, so part of the reason why he's been all up in LA is, raising his family and whatever. Obviously, he has 2 other sons who are still there, and his wife. So it's not like his family is gone, but like, there's something to the idea of maybe he's more willing to leave LA if Bronny goes to goes to New York, and then he's like, okay, well, it's not LA, but I can go live in New York and travel around the country with Bronny, and we'll still have the LA. Like, maybe he'd be more willing to leave LA.
He'd be the first player to ever got to play on the same team as his son. Like, that's talk about legacy and all that. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, I guess that's like, I'm sure that people that like love LeBron James will make that somehow some significant part of his legacy.
And here's the other part. We're talking legacy, right? I know you're never going to put him over Jordan. If he brought a ring back to New York City, that would be a game changer for his legacy. The kind that he probably can't get in LA. I'm
yeah, I mean, that's also like why just kind of like the whole idea of like, look, I mean, I guess you win a ring, you're not going to say anything about it, but it would be very nauseating for the Knicks to like win a championship for the first time in 50 plus years, and for like the memory of that to be, oh, this was the one that put LeBron over Jordan, bro. Like this is the one that like cements his legacy, and like the entire thing is not.
You mean the Knicks can knock Jordan off after all those times they couldn't? I would be all up for that.
But it's not about. It would just become about LeBron. It would not be about the Knicks breaking their drought. Like that would be annoying as a fan. But as like if you're Leon Rose, you don't think about that. You're not like, oh well, what does Shwinny Poo think? He's probably more like, yeah, if I can get LeBron just because I have his son, like I hold him captive by drafting him. Yeah, I mean you would do it, right? There's no reason you don't sign LeBron James in that scenario. You have to, right? If LeBron's like, if you draft Bronny
with the cap, we don't have the cap room though, right? We'd have to do a sign and trade at that point. Right?
Yeah, unless he was just like, I'll take the fucking Emily. I don't really give a shit. Which I mean, maybe he would. I have no clue. But like,
I doubt that. I mean, someone's gonna offer him money. The Sixers could get him. They'll have the cap space. Like,
yeah, but if he wants to play with Bronny, if that's like his, because that's it. He said that, right? Like he wants to play with him.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean you give up potentially what $50 or $30 million a year, right?
I don't know. Maybe what if Nike's like, please go to New York. Go to New York. We'll make it up to you.
I think the other part of it is the Lakers are right now 9th in the West and are
the Lakers suck. They suck.
So is there a possibility that they might anticipate that and just trade him now?
No, they will trade him now. There's zero chance.
Not trading LeBron James. That's not something
you're not trading LeBron James. Nobody's trading LeBron James. Like that. You only trade LeBron James if LeBron comes in your office and is like, I want to leave. I'm never staying here. And if you don't trade me, I'm going to cry and then I'm going to leave anyway. That's the only way you trade him. You can't trade him if he's like, I don't know. Maybe I'll stay. Maybe I won't. But I'm trying really hard and I gave you 28, 7, and 7. So you got to deal with it. Like if he does all my gut instinct, my genuine feeling on this, he's never going to come to New York. I don't think he wants to deal with that shit. I don't think he wants to deal with like the heightened expectations of the Knicks with him on it, which would be like a fucking crazy media circus every day. I don't think he wants to deal with it. I think he's happy in LA.
I mean, he's already dealing with that in LA, though. That is a crazy.
I know. No, I think it's completely different. I think it's different. I think like he comes to New York and it's like it's just a different environment, man. No other team gets talked about like the Knicks. Like it would be every single day would be like how close are they to winning a championship? What does this say about what does losing this Monday to the Hornets say about LeBron's legacy in New York? Like it'll just be fucking constant. It'll be fucking constant. And you know what? He already won his championship in LA. So like while there's still pressure on him and the Lakers in general to compete, it's a different thing now. He comes to New York, it's going to be constant. And I don't know. I just think that he doesn't want to deal with that shit. And I want also like we know that LeBron James lies. He's an all-time liar. Like
remember how many books has he read the first page of?
Oh man, countless. He loves Malcolm X's first page, the autobiography. He lies. So like he might have just said this fucking Bronny thing and everybody ran with it. And he's like, yeah. I want to play Bronny for sure. That's it. Like, and I don't want to just like.
If Utah drafts Bronny, I don't think he's gonna want to play there, right?
Right. Well, it's also like he might have been like he might have more meant like I want to play with him, like against him, or I don't know what was actually said, but like there's a world where he just said something and now it's like become this huge fucking thing, and we're all like, actually exaggerating what he meant. It could just mean that he wanted to like be in the league when Bronny gets in the league. Or that he was exaggerating how much importance that would give to him, or like how important that would be to him rather. I don't know. The LeBron thing is not crazy though. I don't think it's crazy. To me, it's like, dude, if he wasn't gonna come in 2010, if he wasn't gonna like come in at all these other points in time, why the fuck would he come now? I don't know. That'd be a tough one.
Yeah, I do think above all, LeBron, more than Jordan perhaps, wants to be bigger than the game of basketball. I think MJ was basketball first, and second, just about money. I think he's probably financially one of the most successful athletes ever. I think there's been something to LeBron about wanting to be bigger than the game, for better or for worse. And the opportunity to win here, that would give him immortality. I mean, Bill Simmons said this, like, before.
Oh wow.
Before the Ringer, when LeBron made the decision, Bill Simmons had one of the pieces I really liked from him, where he talked about, he saw it as his three options. He did not mention, ironically enough, Miami, so it couldn't have been that good of a piece. But he said his three options are Chicago, which would have given him the best chance to win, Cleveland, or New York, right? So he said Chicago, if he's all about winning, then he should go to Chicago. If he's all about loyalty, he should stay in Cleveland. And if he's about immortality, that's the word Simmons used. Simmons is not exactly a fan of the New York Knicks. And he said, if he wins it, you win a championship in New York. What?
Him and Big L.
Yeah. If he wins a championship in New York, and that was at that time, he would have immortality. And I think he can have more of the best of both worlds, because, like, I mean, if he's, we can talk about the fit with Julius Randle. Like Steph, I am of the belief that LeBron is a guy where you're like, I'm not going to cry about the fit. Imagine how mad we would be if they had LeBron and Randle, and Dip still never played Randle at the 5. But he would have a little bit less pressure, certainly on offense, right? Because that's the thing. Like, in some ways, it'd be less pressure than LA, because LA does not have another creator. Austin Reeves has regressed a little bit. D'Angelo Russell is D'Angelo Russell. Anthony Davis, for all his talent, is best as a play finisher, right? He would have one of the best creators in the league, a guy who some people are not talking about as MVP in Brunson. As an on-ball creator, Randall even might be better than Anthony Davis. He would not have to do as much. He would not have to he probably wouldn't even close, right? He would close lineups, obviously. But in terms of being the guy who has to take the last shot or initiate everything, Brunson is very capable of that. Randall has done it. I don't think he is close to as capable of that as LeBron, but Brunson is close to that. Like, that's how good Brunson is. I think it's a very interesting possibility. But yeah, I'm very curious about that. I think there will be some interesting options for them this summer for sure. The last thing I'll say is, if he really wanted to come to New York, how big do you think the clutch thing ultimately could be? Like, if he was going to leave LA, do you think the clutch thing matters there?
Dude, it's LeBron. If LeBron wants to do something, he's going to do it. Like, and Leon,
you don't think he would be less likely to go to New York because of the clutch thing, or because of Dolan?
Maybe
does he hate Dolan?
I don't think they have any beef. I don't know if he's like, I don't know. James Dolan is dealing with his own issues at the moment in time.
Yeah,
but like, I think if LeBron wants something, he's just gonna do it, right? And I don't think whatever his issue is with Leon or CIA or whatever, even if they really have one, whatever, I don't know how true or what the hell that is. I don't think he thinks Leon is an idiot, right? Like, he knows Leon's not stupid. So, I think that would give him some confidence. The fact that, to your point, the Knicks do have like a full cachet of assets for LeBron to ruin the team with. I've always wanted to play with Zach LaVine. Not sure about that, buddy. But I think it's possible. Again, I don't think he's going to do it, because I think he is just going to stay in LA. That's what I really
see Rush Hour 2?
I have seen Rush Hour 2.
Did Jackie Chan say, "I've always dreamed to go to the Staples Center to watch a game"? No.
I always wanted to go to Square Mountain. That's what he says in the blueprint.
blueprint.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I just think he's gonna stay in LA. Like I don't get the sense that he's restless there. Like this season's going kind of meh, and he's not really like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he's making a big stink about it. Seems like okay. Maybe
No,
that's-
he's made a stick. He's like, we're ass right now. We suck. He said a bunch of shit. Like he's not happy.
yeah,
Like,
he's not. But is he actually angling to get out, or is he just trying to get them to do something? Like I don't think he's actually thinking about leaving. I think he's just like, come on, guys. Like the meme, like do something. Come on, do something. Like trade for Dejounte Murray, please, so that Stacy and Shwin never have to talk about it again. I don't think he's gonna leave, man. I really don't. It's LA. He's 39. Whatever the fuck he is. Like, I know that he still takes care of his body. I know that he still wants to win. I know that he's still competing at a high level, but I have a very hard time seeing him being like, all right, fuck it. Let me do the New York thing now. Like, just you don't do New York in your 40s, right? You don't do New York in your 40s. You do that in your 20s.
most people don't do that in their 30s. But
Exactly.
well, I mean, he could live in Terrytown, so he has a short commute to.
Well, I mean, isn't that the real question that we need to ask ourselves? Is what does LeBron think about the Terrytown practice facility?
He probably wants to live in Bergen County or Greenwich. So no, he did his dude. Look where he did his decision. He did it at the Greenwich Boys and Girls Club.
So he wants to live in Connecticut.
He wants to live with. He wants to be a hedge fund guy. So he's gonna move to Greenwich, which is an easy commute to both Terrytown and if you're familiar with Metro North, then yeah. The only problem is if he wants to stay out past 1:30 and he lives in Greenwich, he's gonna have to wait till the 5:30 train. But other than that.
I have a feeling he'll be able to get around that in ways that you can't.
Do you think he can afford an Uber back to Greenwich or to?
I think so. He might be able to even just afford like a helicopter. So I think he'll be all right there. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else that we needed to discuss before we get out of here? There's something like, is there
Prediction? Do you have a prediction of what the Knicks combo guard move? Who it will be end up being?
I will say. I'll say Brogdon.
You don't think Alec Burks is going to happen?
I sure hope not.
Really, he's been playing well.
I know he's been playing well, but that's not. Let's not give Tibbs one of his favorite toys.
You think he's going to play him 40 minutes? And
I think it's very possibly just stupid shit with Alec Burks. 100%. Yeah. Like he's.
I think if he was the backup to Brunson, I would like that. Like he's fine in that role.
Is he?
Like I think Burks and Hart is kind of low key fire because Hart can give you some of that brim pressure, right?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't love the Hart brim pressure. Oh yeah, you know what we should say? Josh Hart played really well. Played really well against Brooklyn, and hopefully keeps doing that. Or Toronto. Yeah, I know I said Brooklyn. He's probably going to play well against Brooklyn too, but he played really well against Toronto.
That's his old buddy, so he should play well against Brooklyn.
It was good to see. It was good to see him, and actually, he played really well the game before that dude that he actually played, right, against. Fuck, why am I blanking right now? Whoever it was, they played somebody. He played really well. But it's good to see him play well because he's obviously had an up and down season, and they need him. Against Washington, there we go. That's who it was. He played well in that game.
Oh, I did want to ask one other thing. So Lauri Markkanen is another.
Fuck, not Washington. Houston. There you go. You missed the Washington game. Played well against Houston.
Yeah. Lauri Markkanen is a guy we talked about a lot before. Do you think the OG trade rules that out? Do you think that's maybe like this kind of crazy move that the Knicks might pursue?
I think Utah playing as well as they are has cut. Like I just don't think it's feasible now for Ainge to trade him. He's playing too well. They have too many guys playing too well that are young. It makes no sense to trade him. They got to keep.
But you think they'd still trade Clarkson?
Yeah, Clarkson they trade. But I don't. My gut instinct about them is that I think they keep it together through this season. For the most part, maybe there are some fringe guys they move, but like Clarkson's kind of a main piece, right? Markkanen's obviously a centerpiece. A guy like Sexton might be making himself a centerpiece, whatever. Like they don't need to rush this stuff. The one thing to keep an eye on, though, is Keontae George has not played as much recently, I believe, with Sexton and Clarkson kind of grabbing the minutes. So that's obviously not tenable long term. So I do think a move will be made there, just not in this season. I think it'll be in the summer.
You think they'll have to choose between George and Sexton?
No, I just think Clarkson will go and they'll play Sexton. They'll start giving Keontae George the backup minutes, and that'll be that for the time being. For the time being,
we're not going to get George, so sorry, Prez. That's you heard it here first.
Yeah. Breaking news from Stacy: we will not be able to trade for Keontae George. Wow, huge. All right. Well, I think that about sums it up. I don't know. There's not. It's kind of like the Knicks. We need the Knicks to like. It's very boring discussing them actually right now because they're like, yeah, they're really good. Their starters are awesome. Would be cool to get some guy off the bench that could dribble. Great. Hopefully they do it for a deadline. It's like there's really like and we know all the names, right? Fucking Sexton, who's not even a name anymore. Clarkson, Brogdon, all these dudes. Bruce Brown now, Dejounte Murray. We'll see. I think it'll be Brogdon or it'll be not Dejounte. Brogdon or Bruce Brown though. I do think it'll be one of those two.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All right. I have nothing else. So, Stacy, let the people know they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89. Nothing to plug.
You can follow me at Shwin on Twitter. I can't believe we barely even mentioned this, but Brunson was awesome against the Nets. Against the Raptors. He was fantastic. I don't know. It's almost like so routine at this point where you're just like, oh, Brunson cooked an inferior opponent. And not to say that he doesn't do it against like equal opponents or the top opponents. We know he's done that too, but it's just that when we play a team like that, you just are not surprised by it at all. You're like, yeah, Brunson cooked. Not a big surprise. Scotty Barnes sucked, by the way. He was really bad in that game. I think it'll be a little while for the Raptors.
Unless quickly or RJ blows up, right?
Yeah, it'll take
or
some
Barnes,
time.
but I think they're all the same tier of guy, like interesting, but hasn't shown.
I also think that they may not be too upset if their pick conveys this year, and then they don't make any drastic changes next year, and they're maybe they have the 5th or 6th best odds next year, and you're in the mix for Cooper Flag. I don't know, just throwing that out there.
You're just planting your flag. Do you think is Quickly the best player on that team right now?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Honestly, I would say Barnes. Barnes has actually been really good this year. I don't know what the hell was going on with him in that game, but he's been really good this year when I watched him. There was a couple games, I forgot who it was. They might have been playing the Celtics like a few weeks ago, and he was fucking giving them work. So I would say Barnes right now, but yeah, it could be Quickly over time for sure. Why not? All right, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a much better week than I'm about to have. Experiencing all the previews of the AFC Championship game the Bills will not be in. Again, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great week. I hope the Knicks have a better week. And I will see all of you on